Okay, well, with much delight, I am happy to announce Malin Newton with Educational Seminars Institute. He's been involved with ASA for numerous years, always supporting us and our members. He's been supporting us at ATE since 2008. He has done trainings here in Spokane and other places as well. He spoke at some of my meetings, and he's been a trainer at our ASA retreats. Malin has 40 years of automotive repair industry experience and knowledge. As an AMI accredited instructor, he delivers his training to thousands of shop owners, managers, and aspiring entrepreneurs at industry events all over North America.
I'm glad.
Oh, we got some background noise. I can speak for myself, Malin. Anytime I've ever listened to one of your messages, and I've listened to a lot of them, it always makes me want to be a better person. So I always enjoy your presentations, and thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for that, Pamela. I really do appreciate it. Let me see if I can actually share my screen, which would be a wonderful thing. There we go. So thank you, Pamela. And as always, I really enjoy talking to you folks, the Automotive Training Expo crowd from Washington and Oregon and all points north are one of my favorite places to go. And I'm really sad I didn't get to do this stuff this year in person. But this is the closest we're going to get for a while, looks like. So it'll have to do for what we're going to do. So what I wanted to talk with you a little bit about today is a problem that I've seen for a long time. And as Pamela eloquently pointed out, I'm older than dinosaurs. So I've done this a long time. And I see this happen all the time. So we want to share something that I think is a big stumbling block to us being as successful as we could or should be. No matter how successful you are, I think this is a stumbling block. And what I want you to do is take this in the right light. This is not directed at anybody. It's not a personal attack on you or somebody in your staff. It's about, we need to look at things differently. The world has changed recently with COVID, with all the travel restrictions, with the fires going on. People are frightened. And now is the perfect time for change. And I'm here to tell you that I have shops that are going to grow more than 20% in what most people think is the worst year ever. And the biggest reason is because they're doing what we're talking about. They're going to implement things instead of thinking about doing it. So that's what we're going to talk about today is tremendous amount of knowledge, but the most important part of it is the fact that very little of that knowledge gets implemented. Let me get my screen to advance here. So you guys have all heard, yes.
Yeah, your screen's not showing up on the screen there.
Okay, hang on one second. Let me see if I can figure out why. Holler at me if it shows up. I pressed the share screen button. I love technology.
Brenda, can you help him get his screen up?
I just made you a co-host, Maylan. See if that makes a difference. Should be your green share screen button at the bottom.
Well, that's the problem. I don't see a green button at the bottom. Hang on. There we go. I apologize. Is it sharing yet?
Mm-hmm.
And Maylan, if you move your cursor across the screen at the very bottom, it'll say share screen.
I see that button now.
And then it'll pull up what you have, and then it says share.
Okay, when I share that screen, it shows me what's currently being shown. There we go. Should say knowledge is now.
No.
So I see Brenda. Now I press share screen. One participant can share screen at a time. Click that. Can we see it now?
There we go.
Okay. Sorry about that, folks.
Yes, yes, it's up.
Okay. Okay, so everybody's familiar with the terminology, knowledge is power, right? You've all heard this. But I'm here to tell you that's not true. In fact, if I was in person, I'd throw the BS flag. Because knowledge is not power. We all have knowledge. We all know we should be doing something. We all have different things we want to try. For example, how many of you have a yellow pad scribbled full of notes of things you want to get done? And maybe we have 2 or 3 of those. And what happens is we have too much to do sometimes. We have too many things. So knowledge isn't actually power. The implementation of knowledge is power. And that's where we need to differentiate ourselves from everybody else. The people who are super successful implement. Some people gather knowledge. Some people implement whatever they know. And you know, it's not about whether you're the sharpest crayon in the box. It's not about whether somebody's smarter than you are. It really boils down to a simple thing. It's whether you implement the things that you've learned. And here's part of our problem in today's world. There's too much information. Google processes more than 40,000 searches every second, about 3.5 billion a day, and that is just Google. When we add all the other search engines, that's over 5 billion searches a day. I'm telling you, no matter what you want to know for knowledge, it's out there. You can take anything and translate it into almost any language or have it translated for you. You can find out anything. It's amazing. You type in 6 random words into Google search and see what it takes you to. It's pretty amazing. And one of the things that I found very interesting, in the last 2 years alone, over 90% of all the data in the world was generated. Now, just so you know, that statistic is about 1.5 years old. Now, I want you to think about all the data that just you generate in a day. Multiply that by the number of people there are on the planet. And for those of you that are worried about Big Brother watching, stop worrying about it. He already is. The amount of information that Google gets from each of us every day is absolutely astonishing. My question is, how are they using it? So there's lots of knowledge in the world. It's about how they use that knowledge. And for most of us in our businesses, and I include this myself, we're not using the knowledge that we already possess and that some of us have possessed for 20 years or 40 years to make our businesses better. And there's a few different reasons for that. Now, this is actually the Powertrain Expo, and I use their exhibit here because they're not too far from where I live, and I know that the manager of their magazine keeps track of this. This is their binders for each of their expos they do each year. In fact, I was supposed to be in Nashville next month for this show. It's going virtual now. And I've been with them for probably 14 years. But they've been doing the expo for 25 years. And every year there's approximately 1,000 pages of technical and management information given out. That's the written word. That's the workbooks they get. And I want you to think about that. They've gotten 1,000 pages of information for 25 years. how much of that was actually implemented? What was actually done from them spending the money? And I have shops that close down just like they do at AT. They close down the whole shop. They take everybody to this training. And then when they get back, they've invested literally thousands of dollars in it. But the question is, what actually gets implemented? Is it one thing? Is it 10 things? Is it 0? And there's several reasons why it doesn't get implemented or why we hold back from it. We're going to talk about those. And that's really the stuff I want you to take away from this today is why don't we implement? Why aren't we doing some of this stuff? And I bet you every one of you has a thought that's popped into your head and said, yeah, I was going to start this. I was going to do this. And it never happened. You never implemented it, or you implemented it and then it fell to the wayside. And, you know, I'd say this all the time when we're doing a live training event. I say, you know, your employees said, oh man, Brenda's going to training this weekend. You know, she's going to come back all fired up and ready to do things and want to change things. I wonder how long that's going to last. And they start a pool. Well, this idea will only last a week, a day, 2 days, because they know what happens to all of us is we want to start something. We have great intentions and then it falls to the wayside because we go back into the old way of doing business, the rut, if you will. We just start doing it the old way. So this is where we need to think about a plan, if you will. How are we going to implement this knowledge? How are we going to start things? And I'm going to share something with you. I was doing some reading and I ran across an autobiography of what they called the most prolific writer in the world. This person has written by himself somewhere around 600 books. Now, I know Jeff can attest to how long it takes to write a book. And I think, Jeff, you said your book had 50,000 words in it. So I want you to think about how long does it take to write 50,000 words? And in the autobiography, one of the questions I would ask him, how do you write that many words? Do you sit down and write 10 hours a day, 5 days a week for years? And he goes, no. He said, I never get anything done. He said, my daily goal, I want to write 250 words a day. That's all I want to do. So every morning he gets up and he implements his plan of writing 250 words. Now, 250 words could take him an hour, or it could take him 8 hours. Or he starts with 250 words in his mindset, and at the end of the day, he's written 10,000 words. But the key, what I took away from this was he didn't try to write a book in a day. He simply had a simple goal of writing 250 words. So that was the way he implemented his writing, was a simple thing. I'm going to do 250 words a day until he wrote hundreds of books. So why don't we get things done? Why don't we implement things? And there's really 5 basic reasons, I feel. And the first one is we have no short time-based goals. We all say, get up in the morning, have a coffee, and we're thinking about what needs to be done. And we say, well, I need to do this and I need to do that. But we don't say, I need to do this and it needs to be done by 9:30. We tell an employee, I need you to do this. I need this brake job on this car done. I need the process and procedure written by. I need this presentation written by. So there's no actual end time given. There's no sense of urgency. And when you're implementing things, there has to be a sense of urgency because there's too many distractions, right? I call it the Squirrel Syndrome. There's too many things that jump into your view and take your attention away from the task. So when you're implementing something, if a squirrel runs into the picture, you're going to lose that. And then it never gets restarted again. So we want to have everything have short time-based goals. I'm going to do this by 1 o'clock. I'm going to do this by 5 o'clock. I'm going to do this by Friday. Everything that you want implemented needs to have a short time-based goal. Just this year, and in fact, in the last 3 months, I've had 4 shop owners call me about selling their businesses. And when I ask them, when do you want to be out of your business? Every one of them says within a year. And I have to tell them you don't have enough time. Because even a well-run shop, it's going to take about 5 years to get it ready to sell. The problem is one of these people 7 years ago said, I want to sell this business in a year, and never set that goal of 5 years. So 7 years later, we're now setting a 5-year goal. So it'll mean it will take 12 years for them to have sold their business, because they just didn't use the very simple concept of a time-based goal. The second largest reason is no accountability. Who holds you accountable? Now, I think we have, probably listening in, we have some husband and wife teams. So who holds you guys accountable? So does the wife hold the husband accountable, or does the husband hold the wife accountable? And how well does that work? Now, sometimes the employees are held accountable by the boss, but here's the really big question. Who holds the boss accountable? Who's going to call you on it? Hey, Jeff, you said you were going to do this and you didn't do this. We need an accountability partner more so now than ever, because we start things and stop things. You know, we are, even though some of us are older, we're in the instant gratification world, where if it doesn't happen in 5 seconds, I don't want to deal with it. So what happens is, if it doesn't click and happen right away, we have a tendency to go on to the next thing. So we need somebody to hold us accountable. The other thing is, we don't ever see the consequences. And I'll give you a good example of this. Working with a transmission shop, and I just got them to track comebacks properly. And they had almost 50 hours of warranty last month. So they tell their employees, we had 50 hours of warranty. And the employees go, oh, that sucks. Well, they don't understand what the consequences of 50 hours of warranty is. So we put it to dollars and cents, and it cost the shop over $21,000. An actual cost for their warranty, and what we call missed opportunity, time they didn't bill somebody. Well, when we told them it was $50,000, guess what the employees did? They went, whoa, that's a lot of money. They didn't care about the hours because they don't have a concept of what that means. The money is. So when we don't see the consequences, what not implementing this, not following through on the implementation, not making the changes necessary are, we're not going to do it because there's no pain. And another quick story, in 2018, I had a client and we looked at his numbers, and I said, you need to raise your hourly rate. And I asked him to raise his hourly rate $5. And you would have thought I asked him to chop his arm off. I mean, he went crazy about, I can't do that. My customers will leave me. I'll lose all of my business. I mean, you know, all the normal things. So every week, because I coached this guy, every week I ask him, did you do your hourly rate? Did you fix your hourly rate? No. So in September of that year, I had him figure out how many hours he had billed for that year. And when we multiplied it by the $5, it was a $30,000 gross sales hit he took in October. And I said, this is why you needed to raise your rate, and you lost $30,000 of gross sales. I said, I'm prepping you right now. You're going to need to raise your hourly rate in January. The cost of living is going to go up at a minimum. Well, he didn't raise so much cane this time. And in January of that year, he raised his hourly rate $10, $5 for what he missed the prior year, and $5 for the next year. So the consequences of not doing things you have to do, such as January 1st, you should automatically adjust your hourly rate a minimum of the cost of living. So if the cost of living in 2020 is 4%, your hourly rate needs to go up at least that. And you need to make that a habit of doing it every year, because everything else you're paying for is going up, at least the cost of living. So the consequences, we have to explore that. And I'm fairly sure there's nobody on this Zoom meeting today that can just leave $30,000 laying on the counter and not worry about picking it up, right? We can all use that money. And that's what we're leaving out there because we don't see the consequences. It's not just $5. It's $5 for every hour you build. Even $1 for every hour you build would be huge. You have no idea what it looks like. We have this idea of implementation, but you don't know what that looks like. What's the finished product going to be? It's kind of like this. Why don't we hire a new employee? Because we don't know what they are. We're kind of afraid of what they don't know, what they're going to do, how they're going to mess with stuff. And a lot of times when we talk about hiring somebody, I get this from a lot of owners. Well, what if he's worse than what I have? Well, I'd say then we need to work on your hiring process. But here's the really good question you should ask yourself. What if he's so much better than what I have? Wouldn't that be a good consequence? But if you don't hire them, you never know if they're good or worse, do you? And that's what keeps a lot of us from doing it because we don't know what it looks like. If I bring somebody on, if I change this, if I make this process different, it's going to make you uncomfortable, your staff uncomfortable, your employees uncomfortable, or your customers uncomfortable maybe. But the bottom line is it going to help you? Maybe it will. I don't know. We have to start. And that takes us to the other one. I don't know how or when to start. And I'm kind of one of those people. I think you should always be recruiting. I don't think you should look for an employee when you need one. You should always be recruiting. And you should fire the weakest link. And people find that to be a cold, calloused statement, but it's business. Because employees are hard to find. So the idea is if you don't think you have the right staff, right now is the day to start. And how you start is start interviewing people. Run an ad every day. And I don't care if your employees see it. Maybe they'll get a little concerned and do a better job for you. But you need to figure out how we're going to make this work and when we're going to start. That kind of goes right back up to number one, which is a short time-based goal.
Yeah, I wanted to at least
if I want to start something, I want to start something immediately or on Monday, as opposed to I'll get to it. Trust me, procrastination is probably one of our small business and especially the automotive industry's biggest negative. So if you don't know how to start something, let's talk about it. If you don't know when to start, pick a day. Just pick a day and get started and do a little bit at it every time. You know, there's an old saying that says, how do you eat an elephant? Anybody out there ever hear this? You know, it's old as the hills. How do you eat an elephant?
a little bit at a time.
Yeah, one bite at a time. And that's the way business is. Identify the tastiest part of the elephant, on that. And then move on to the next most important thing. So one of the things that we're going to talk about here, and we're going to spend a little more time on this, is how do we fix this mentality? And it starts with what I call keep the main thing. I don't know your businesses. I know some of you pretty well, but you need to decide what's the most important thing in your professional life you need to be working on. Maybe it's cash flow. You don't cash flow properly. Maybe it's reducing debt. Maybe it's finding customers. Maybe it's finding an employee. Maybe it's developing an exit strategy for you. But what I want you to do is find the main thing. Whatever that main thing is, I want you to focus on it. So it's very interesting that when I mention this next word, a lot of people have been volume down and watch my lips. Basically, what the main thing is a goal. So let's say, for example, my main thing is, or your main thing is, I need a new technician. We're going to write that down as a goal. I need a new diagnostic technician with a date.
Hey, Malin?
Yes.
Malin, I think you need to move your mic up a little bit. You're starting to fade off.
Sorry, is that better?
Yeah, move it up just a little bit towards your mouth. Yeah, that's much better, I think. Try that out.
All right. So if it's going to be to hire a technician, then I'm going to put a date down. And I'm going to decide the kind of person I want. I'm not just going to write down, I want a technician. I'm going to write down that I need a diagnostic technician with this many years of experience that has this equipment knowledge. I'm going to be very specific about this, but I'm going to put a date when I'm going to have this person hired. And from today till I hire that person, that is going to be the most important thing that I'm going to focus on in my business. Now, you have to understand that when you put that kind of focus on your main thing, other things are going to slip a little bit. So you might have to delegate some of those other things to other people. But the bottom line is, you're going to accomplish what you focus on. And in most cases, we're not focused on anything. When I talk to shop owners about goals, it's like, I want to make payroll. I want to do this much in sales this week, but never how we're going to do that. So I want you to figure out what your main thing is. And then I want you to write down what the main thing is in detail, whatever it is for you. And I want you to always keep the main thing the main thing. That's got to be what you're focusing on at all times. Every morning you should get up and have a meeting with yourself, and you should be talking to yourself about what's the main thing. So you decide what you want to implement. Is that the most important thing for your business right now? That becomes the main thing. I don't want you distracted by anything else. You know, it's just like during this meeting, if you have your computer set up for your emails to pop open, to notify you, or instant messages to pop up, you have a tendency to take off your attention from the main thing and go check that out. And then, of course, when that happens, something else pops up and you go someplace else. And it's 2.5 hours later, you get back to what you're working on, completely lost your train of thought, and you've lost that time. You have to be focused on this. You have to set goals. And that's basically what the main thing is. What is your most important goal to make your business better today? And here's something to think about. If cash flow is your important thing, you need more sales. What would it mean to your company if you implemented some changes that allowed you to deliver one more car a day? Right? You probably already have the car, because most of us have productivity problems anyway. But if I could deliver one more car a day, and you don't have to share, but think about this. If I said, Mark, what one more car a day would mean to your business? Let's say your average reporter, because it's, you know, late in the day and we're going to do math, is $500, right? So one more car a day for a week is $2,500. $2,500 times 52 weeks. Would you get excited about that? Yeah. And let's be honest, what would it take to deliver one more car a day, Mark? Just a little bit of stuff, right?
Some processes, probably some better processes put in place to be able to accomplish that. Maybe at the parts ordering process, how the car comes into the shop, how it comes out of the shop, things like that.
Paperwork flow. How about your employees being on time and dressed and ready to work? How about cigarette breaks? They affect that? How about cell phones? I mean, you think about it, there's a lot of little things that we take for granted because they're not being focused on by us. It's all of those things. It's the parts not being ordered properly. How about, you ever look for a part that was delivered? Ever look for a set of keys? Ever look for the repair order for a car so we can work on it? Yeah, I see some of you smiling. You know this happens, right? So for very little money, just attention to detail of keeping it the main thing, we could get one more car done a day. And that's what your main thing needs to be focused on. So you got to figure out what your main thing is. Maybe it is fixing one more car a day. Maybe it is hiring a technician. Maybe it is improving your cash flow, and it's adjusting that hourly rate like we talked about. Maybe it is delegating some of the jobs you guys are doing as owners and managers to somebody else so you can focus on what's important to you. So you think about what is the most important thing your business needs, and then spend some time on it. Oops, I'm sorry. So one of the things, would somebody just take a minute here and share with me what you think might be your most important thing? What you should focus on as your main thing?
I think being humble and with your attitude and admitting that you don't have everything figured out yet. We're still having a work in progress.
That was you, Leon, right?
That is me, yes.
Well, thank you, because you hit upon the big head of the nail. We have to get over this idea that we know everything because we're the business owner. Ego is a huge killer for us. And I'll be honest with you. If you want to implement things, you have to be open to other people's ideas. You know, I went in, a guy paid me to come into his shop. I spent 2 full days with his service writers, trying to help them be more efficient, focus on the right things, do a better job, build better value, all the things that service writers are supposed to do. But the very first day I was there, about 2 hours into the visit, I happened to be walking down the hallway to get to the back shop, and he was walking by me the other way. This is the owner of the business. He stops me and goes just like this. He puts his finger in my face and says, just because I'm paying you doesn't mean I'm going to do anything you say. And I was speechless. Very few times that happens. And I went, okay, why am I here? But you think about it, who's the problem there? It's almost got to be him, right? And so everything that I tried to implement, he didn't back me up in it. So the employees didn't back me up on it. So guess what changed? Nothing. So what else? Somebody else give me something that needs to be your main thing. Thank you, Leon, because we got to get our egos out of this, and we got to stop thinking we know everything. You know, I am not the sharpest crayon in the box, but I want to learn something new every day. So anybody else have something, the main thing that they'd like to work on? Remember to unmute yourself.
Letting people do the work that you're paying them to do and not micromanaging over the top of them.
Thank you. That was Mark, right? I got to tell you, I find it amazing. I had an owner write his job description for me. By the way, if you don't write your own job description, you should do that. And one of the things on his job description was to make sure, and you tell me, Mark, if this was a good thing for him to have on his job description, to make sure his employees show up at work and punch in.
No, that shouldn't be his job.
In my mind, if you have to worry about your employees showing up and punching in, you have the wrong employee. Wouldn't you agree?
It may not be the wrong employee, but it's the wrong recipe to keep them, because you need to make that place so inviting they can't stand not to be 5 or 10 minutes early.
Right. Well, and see, and that's why everybody in this room thinks differently, right? So we have to work this out. But here's the other thing, is by him micromanaging, he can't leave the business. If he can't leave the business, guess where he's going to be for the rest of his life? He's bought a job. He doesn't own a business, right? So these are the things that you have to really think about. What is your job as the owner? Your job is to leave the business eventually and have it function without you. Anything you do that is not towards that end goal. So for most of you on this event today, your main thing needs to be exit the business. Hire the right people, train them, process procedures, trust them, grow them, so you can stay home and do Zoom meetings all day like we are, and the business sends you a paycheck. And that's where a lot of us have missed this. You know, and it's two things. I get a lot of owners go, well, I don't want to not go to work. I want to go to work. That's me. I love what I do. I've been trying to do this Zoom meeting since 11 o'clock. Every one of you were late. I was excited about getting a chance to talk about this. I work because I love what I do, but that's different than having to work because you have to. And what's really interesting is if I decided today not to do anything, make no phone calls and not do anything, everybody else in the company is doing what they're supposed to. I don't call Jeff and go, Jeff, did you make your phone calls today? Jeff, did you do this? I have called and said, Jeff, you are coming on the webinar, right? But that's just because I haven't heard from him for a while. But not because I don't think he's going to be there. I just want to make sure there's no problems. So what else might be a main thing that you guys need to work on? Everybody got quiet there.
This is Leon. I just
Yes.
had a meeting with my staff here about an hour ago, and I was teaching the frustrations and how to remove frustrations from the business or your life, no matter what they are. The first thing is to be honest that we do have frustrations, and if you write them down, we can pick them one at a time and remove them. And if we can just write an SOP to remove one frustration per week, that would be 52 frustrations removed per year.
Well, you know, Leon, that's a great point. You know, when I used to write all my processes and procedures, when something happened that made me mad, right? We call that motivation. So I'd sit down and write a process and procedure so that didn't happen. And I call it remove the excuses. So one of my main things is when I'm working with a shop owner is everybody has excuses. Employees, vendors, everybody. I try to remove the excuses. Hey boss, I couldn't do that because. Well, let's remove the excuse. Next time it happens, I ask the same question. What do we need to do so this doesn't happen? And pretty soon, what you do, like Leon said, was we removed all the excuses, and guess what? They can perform. Plus, we got to add to our main things here. I think we need to teach our employees how to be decision makers. So when they come to you, you know, if I come to you every time, Mark, and ask, what do you want me to do? Guess what I never learned to do for myself?
Think.
Think for yourself. Yeah.
Right. But also, if every time I think for myself, you yell at me, guess what I'm not going to do?
Think for yourself.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's all these things. And as owners, this is what we need to be implementing. Removing the excuses, of making them think, of making them responsible for things. And that's part of our problem is part of it's ego also, Leon, that we're the experts, right? This is my business. I mean, has anybody ever heard from another shop owner? Well, I pay them. They should just do it because I pay them. Sorry if you said that, but I laugh when I hear that. Nobody does things for money.
That's right.
They do it because they want to. You know, I've left the best paying jobs to go to a lesser paying job because, well, the big buzzword now is culture, but the attitude of the owner, the attitude of the people in the shop. Wouldn't you guys agree? So maybe that needs to be your main thing is get over, I'm the boss, and get to, let's all be successful so I can make you successful. So, yes, I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
No. There's just thing that came to mind, and this is probably the gorilla in the room that nobody wants to mention. But part I think that is we have a fear of change, and as a business owner, well, fear of change of, well, believe me, I've been there, and I've worked with plenty of people do the same thing. Is, well, why am I working myself out of a job? I used to be in the Shell service station business, and it was when I finally sold and got out of that business after 18 years. I remember that about a week later, I woke up one morning and I said, I'm no longer the Shell answer man. I had literally had to reinvent myself, and that was kind of scary. And I know a lot of people that think, well, gee, if I don't have to work, what do I do? So again, that goes back to the planning and what's your main thing. But I understand it's stopping and thinking, why do I want to give people that information to do things that I should be doing? So it's that fear of, well, gee, I don't have a purpose. That's a little harder to address, but still something to think about. And maybe that's the reason why some of us don't make the plans to make those changes or to empower other people, because then we feel powerless.
Well, that's a good point. And there's two things to add to that. Is had this conversation last night with an owner. They don't do it my way because he's the owner. His way's the only way, right? No. And it's funny because one of the things that I say is if I come and write service, let's say I come and write service, at Leon's shop. Leon goes on vacation. I go write service at Leon's shop. And he comes back and three things have happened. His customers are happy. His employees are happy. And we made money. Would you be happy, Leon?
I would be elated.
Okay. But here's the thing. I'm going to do things that irritate you.
I'm not sure that you will.
I will. Trust me. I will. I have that built into me, right? Because I'm not Leon. I'm going to do things different, right? If I went to Mark's shop, I'm going to do things differently. But in the end result is customers are happy, employees are happy. We made money. But you would come in, for example, because I've had this happen. Well, this box should be over here, or this should have been over here, or I wouldn't do it this way. And it's like, wait a minute. I didn't do it your way, but we accomplished the overall positive things. And that goes back to what Jeff was talking about, is stop striving for perfection because they're not you. And that was the number one harsh reality I learned when I first started managing people was they're not me. They don't show up early. They don't work late. They don't work because they have fun, right? They work for maybe money. So as soon as I realized they weren't me and adjusted that, made it work right. I made my life a lot easier. So lack of perfection, lack of it's got to be done your way. And just because they do it different than you doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different, right? And biggest thing besides I pay them, so they just should do it, that irritates me is I don't want to train my employees because I'm going to train my competition. Well, if you're going to train your competition, train them to be the best so they're not the lowball competition. So we got to change the way we think. And that goes back to what's your main thing? Don't skimp on training. Don't skimp on giving them responsibilities. Don't skimp on holding them accountable. All those things that I talked about, you guys, accountability partners, short time-based goals of keeping the main thing. You should have that with them. Leon, you talked about having a meeting with your staff, right?
Right, yes.
You should ask them to write down in their professional life and their personal life, what is their main thing? And then help them achieve it in their personal life and their professional lives. And you know what that'll do for you? Give you a better employee. Because they need to have a purpose and a direction also. So when we talk about knowledge, we all seek knowledge. For example, today we've talked about a lot, not terrible 50, 60 things. One of the funny things was Jeff sat through this presentation a couple of weeks ago, I think, at another group that I did this for, and we were talking about it. He goes, yeah, I made a bunch of notes. Why are you making notes, Jeff? It's not the first time you heard this presentation. It made me think. So he does just like everybody else does, and I'm not picking on Jeff, but it was just funny that he brought it up. He made notes. But you know what the real important criteria is? What happened to the notes? Do we put them someplace so we can go back and review them and implement something? Or are they just another yellow pad that we're going to stack on a shelf someplace and never get anything done or accomplished? And you need to help your employees with this too. Just like the owners that want to sell a business, you ever have an employee come to you and say, I want to buy a house? Ask them, how are you going to do that? You got to save money, explain to them. They don't know what it takes. They need about 20% of their own money. How do you save that money? Put $100 a paycheck away, put $50 a paycheck away. That's what you need to do about implementing. You need to start today. You know, and I'm not going to ask anybody. Well, I'll ask Jeff because I can't make him any madder than he normally is with me, right? So, Jeff, you don't have to tell me how old you are, but what would have happened? How much money would you have in the bank if you had saved $100 a year for the entire time you've been alive?
How much money would I have in there?
Yeah.
A few $1,000s.
What if you would have saved $100 a week for every year you've been alive?
Well, multiply that times 12.
You've only been alive 12 years? But you think about it, that's what we're talking about, is you got to start with little things.
Mm-hmm.
That short time-based goals. I'm going to save $100 a week. And what's really funny is, I'll tell you a little story about a shop owner, and he came to our financial structuring class, and we talk about saving money by the day. And so he got really excited about this, like we do when we go to class. And he went back and told his bookkeeper, every day I want you to put X amount of dollars in the savings account every day. It started out at $25. And he goes, we're going to raise our hourly rate because we did the math in class and this is what we should be doing. And he raised his hourly rate, and then he raised his productivity. And the young lady in the office was putting money away every day. What he didn't know was, as they made more money because his productivity increased and his hourly rate went up a little bit, she put more money away. And after a few years, he was standing in watching it rain. He's in Northern California, watching it rain and looking at the potholes in his parking lot. He turned to his office lady and said, man, I really wish we could pave this parking lot. He goes, but I know it's just tons of money to do it. I just don't think I can afford it. She goes, hang on. She went in, made a couple phone calls, came back and says, you can afford to pave this parking lot and have money left over. And he goes, where's that money coming from? She said, your savings account. Well, come to find out that in all these years that she'd been putting a little bit of money away, and then more money away, and then more money away, plus she gave him a raise, was paying him more money, he had accumulated well over 6-digit savings account. And the part that scares me is he didn't know that. Thank goodness she was an honest person, right? But it wasn't big money. It wasn't, $20,000. It was $50, $75, $100. I think at the end he was saving something like $250 a day. But it started with coming home from a seminar with an idea, implementing it, and doing it repeatedly for a long period of time. That's what you need to decide. What's your most important thing? Each of you needs to decide what your most important thing is. And just start doing it a little bit every day. Write those 250 words. I don't know how many of you have ever read any of Zig Ziglar's books. I thoroughly enjoy Zig Ziglar, but he talks about he was going to start jogging. And so, he talks about his wife. He called her the redhead. He says, yep, the redhead went out and bought me this great running suit. And I got up early in the morning and I put my running suit on and I tied my tennis shoes. And boy, I went out the door and I just ran my tail off. And then I walked back to the house. He said, I made it all the way to the neighbor's mailbox. And every day he got up and he ran from his house to the neighbor's mailbox, and then a couple more steps and a couple more steps. So this guy was actually running marathon lengths. It started with one small step. It started with from his front door to the neighbor's mailbox. And I'll be honest with you, that's all we're talking about here. A lot of you know what happened to me, and I did a lot of recovery in the hospital. And my days started out with, I just want to take 1 or 2 more steps than I did the day before. And that's the way you run your business. 1 or 2 more steps better than you did the day before. But you have to have a goal in mind, a focus point, the main thing. And here's what I ask my clients to do. Whatever your main thing is, get a nice bright white 3x5 card, and on a Sharpie, I want you to write what the main thing is. And I want you to put it on your computer monitor, I want you to put it on the dashboard of your car. I want you to put it in the bathroom mirror. I want you to put a copy of it in your shirt pocket. So all day long, you know what you're staring at? Your main thing. Until it becomes something else. And that's how you achieve implementation. Focus on it, do it. And pretty soon it becomes a habit and you don't have to think about it as much. So whatever your main thing is, whatever you need to do, whatever it is, whether it be personal, professional, fitness, health, pick it, focus on it, baby steps, take the excuses away, and move on with this. Your business is suffering because you take all these notes and you go back and you get sidetracked by what should I do? And you know, when I was a temporary service writer, I had this asked me a lot, and it used to make me just, I call it BS crazy. That's bat crazy. I'd have a technician walk up to me, you know, and Mark, maybe you've had it done, and Leon, maybe you've had a technician say this to you. I have a rack. What do you want me to do? And my answer to them was always, fix the car. I don't care if you have a rack. They have jack stands and floor jacks, right? Remember the good old days?
I'm using.
Remember before air, BA, before air?
Yeah.
But we implement things, we make their lives easier, but there's so much more we could. And I'm going to be honest with you. I want you guys to go back to last ATE. Get your notepad out and look at what you wrote down. So we're going back 2 years now because we didn't get to do it live this year. 2 years ago, I want you to look at the things you wrote down and go, nope, didn't do anything on that. Nope, didn't do anything on that. Nope, didn't do that, didn't do that, didn't do that. And then you need to sit down and take the excuses away from yourself. And please don't pick 10 things. You won't do them. One thing, the main thing. And you go down and decide what the most important thing is. If it's, I need more cash flow, I need to pay off debt, I need to buy a piece of equipment, I need to fire a technician, I need to hire a technician, whatever it is, write that down on that 3x5 card. And by the way, after you write down the description, you know what else I want you to write down? The date it's going to be done. And when should you start it? Today, right now.
If you use a day planner, Malin, like I do, an old traditional paper and pencil, and I try to write the main thing on the today's list. And if I don't get it done, I need to write it tomorrow. And if I don't get it done, then I need to move it to next day again. And I follow that pretty strictly. So I sometimes have to write things maybe 7 or 8 times because I still didn't get it done. And then my patience wears out a little bit and I'll just do it. And then it's done. Then I don't need to write it anymore.
And then you go, why didn't I just do it earlier?
Yep. Yep.
Well, there's actually a concept, and what they call that, it's called planning forward. It's a time management system. And they say if you plan it forward, which is what you were talking about, of having to change the due date because you didn't get it done today. If you do that 3 times, you should take it off your immediate things to do and put it on your list. They call it the master list of things you want to get done. Because they feel if you plan it forward 3 times, it's not high enough priority to keep it on your daily calendar. But see,
good point.
There's all kinds of ways of doing that. But what you've developed is your system, right?
Correct.
I applaud you for that. Jeff,
So,
you had something?
Well, you mentioned my book, and I'll make in the research and putting my book together, the title of my book, I'm not trying to pitch a book, but the idea is you die 1 week, one thing. I'm going to get one thing done this week. And the part of the problem most of us is, you know, like you say, I've got a planner, I've got my list of stuff, and every day there's something that gets forward over to the next week. But what I've done is I take one, like say my one thing. If I got to do my marketing, what's my marketing plan? I haven't sat down and done my marketing plan or reviewed it in some time. What am I going to? You need to actually do what's called time chunking, and say this is my 30 minutes. I'm working on this every day this week. And you may not finish the marketing plan entirely, but at least you got it started. You've got something working that you work with. And then now it's easier to kind of complete that as you go on the next week when you start the next thing. But going back to that main thing, if you don't make an appointment with the main thing, everything else crowds out, and that's something to think about. Find that accountability partner, somebody to say, hey, your 30 minutes, time to sit down for that 30 minutes and get it done. There's another book called The One Thing that talks about time chunking like that. Even look up what Ben Franklin did. Some great tips on setting up the time that you need to do that one thing. Hope that helps.
And one of the other things that this time management thing that I took about planning forward is they tell you to start every day out with what they call planning in solitude, where you sit down with your planner and you map out your day, prioritize what you have on your planner so you can get all the important things done. And let's be honest, every day our priority list changes a little bit, right? There's things that happen, stuff unanticipated. So bottom line is I want you to find your main thing and then focus on it, try to make it happen. See if you can't get more accomplished in a day. We all have the same amount of time. Why do some people get more done? Because they're more focused. Close your office door, close the window. You know, if you have a shop window, you know, one that looks out over the shop, doesn't that drive you crazy looking out that window sometimes? Why are they doing that? Those are distractions that keep you from the main thing. Is there anybody else, because I don't want to go over, we're at 2 o'clock. Is there anybody else that would like to share their main thing with us? Okay. Well, before we leave, I'm going to give you guys 2 things. I'm going to give you my email address and my cell phone number. And if you want to talk about your main thing or implementation, please reach out to me. If you want to talk to Jeff at the end of this, I'll let him give you his contact information. And I do recommend that you go check out Jeff's book. It's available on Amazon. My email address is Maylan, M-A-Y-L-A-N, at esiseminars.com. And my cell phone number is 805-377-9566. 805-377-9566. And the easiest way to get a hold of me is via text, because I spend most all day on the phone. So if you text me, I'll text you back and we'll set up an appointment, because we got to manage our time to talk with you. Jeff, why don't you give them your contact information? Jeff, your contact information?
He's not unmuted.
I'm chatting, putting it in the chat box, make it easy for everybody.
Okay, he's going to put it in the chat box for this meeting. And I appreciate your time today, and thank you for participating. I'm glad we were able to kind of have some back and forth a little bit. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask myself or Jeff before we end this? Again, I want to honor your time.
Just want to say very good presentation. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. And if there's anything at all that ESI can do to help you follow up on this, any questions you might want to ask, please reach out to me. You know, I'm very different than a lot of other people that do what I do. Is I actually care about the industry, and I want you to be very successful. Most of you that know me or have seen me speak before know that. So there's no question that's pretty much off limits with me. And in fact, I'll make this offer to you, is that if you're a member of ASA Northwest, I'll give you a free half an hour a month of management consulting at no charge, because you're a member of ASA Northwest. All you need to do is email me, text me, and let me schedule time, but you can have a half an hour a month, no charge, no obligation. I won't sell you anything. I'm not going to sell you anything. I'll answer your questions and try to help you the best I can. And I really look forward to seeing you in person next year.
I have a question, Malin.
Yes.
Do you know anything about Protractor and people that convert from Mitchell to Protractor? Because we have done that in the end of August. So we're new with Protractor, and I didn't know if you've ever helped anybody make that transition.
I am not the computer expert anymore. Jeff, do you have any knowledge that you might be able to help Leon with?
Well, I'm familiar with Mitchell intimately, but as I train on that, as far as the protractor, I know about it. I've had some people convert to it. Why don't you give me a call or email me, and let's set up a time to chat about it and see what I might be able to help you with that.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Leon, who was your salesperson for Protractor, by the way?
I think just got it directly from AMS.
Okay. Brian Beatty is also a Protractor user.
From Yakima?
Yes, and he's also an ASA member.
Okay.
And that guy knows it inside and out. He's probably the best at it, and I know a lot of guys on Protractor, so I'm recommending him to you. Okay.
Thank you, Mark. I
And
appreciate
you know
it.
he'll help. You know he'll help anyway. So.
Oh yeah. Yep.
He'll come to your shop and help you for a week if you need it. I'd drive you crazy, but
One of the things I'll just throw this out there. Jeff is very, very, very knowledgeable on the Mitchell system because he trains on it. So if you have the Mitchell system, you have any questions, he's a good resource for you. He can do a lot of things. Jeff is also, I don't know how many of you got a chance to meet Jeff at the last in-person ATE, but Jeff is coaching and training with ESI now. So he's always available to help you. He's very knowledgeable. He's been in the business. I've known him for 20 years probably. So he's another resource that we can help you with. We also have, if you're looking, I call her the web whisperer. We have somebody that can help you with the website stuff, blog posts, social media stuff. I'm not giving you an advertisement, but if you have any needs for that stuff, reach out to me and I'll put you in contact with our web whisperer, Melissa. So other than that, please reach out to me if there's anything you need at all that I can help you with. And if I can't help you with it, I'll probably be able to refer you to somebody who can. And keep telling Pamela you want me in person. And as soon as we can get there, because it's driving me crazy staying home, please help me get out of the house, people. Please. But I appreciate you guys being here today, all of you, men and women. I appreciate ASA Northwest. You guys are like family to me. If there's anything I can do to help you individually or as a group, please reach out to me. If you want to do some chapter meeting training, that kind of stuff, let me know. Pamela, always a pleasure seeing your smiling face.
Yeah, thank you for being here today, Maylan.
you.
Your message was really good. We appreciate you and all that you do.
Thank you very much. Everybody have a great day. Be safe.
Yes. See you soon, hopefully.
You bet. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.